People of the state of Florida 2 years ago passed an amendment that would have given a partial tax exemption to all first responders who were wounded in the line of duty.
I do not know you, but I am your brother.
You do not know me, but I am your protector.
I will run into a burning building to save your life.
Though I do not know your name, I will take a bullet for you.
Though we've never met,
I believe in duty and sacrifice
of self.
Your family is my family.
Is my family. Your life is my duty.
What's going on, guys? Time for another episode of Behind the Uniforms. Very excited to be out here in Florida for the Wounded Officers Initiative. They're putting on Heroes Weekend. Law enforcement today and our friends over at Enforce sponsored us, sent us down. I am honored and privileged to introduce you to this gentleman. Tell him who you are.
Jim Bomford, a retired MTA police officer from New York.
All right, Jim, let's talk. First of all, you want to tell me about a good day or about a bad day first?
Well, I basically wanted to discuss, since it's the Heroes Weekend, what's going on here in Florida, where apparently they're willing to recognize some heroes, but not others. The legislature, the people of the state of Florida 2 years ago passed an amendment that would have given a partial tax exemption to all first responders who were wounded in the line of duty. They basically were giving them something that is very similar to what the veterans get here. Not equal to, but similar to. The people voted for it. The state legislature in a joint resolution voted for it with the wording covering every first responder. And then one individual, Representative Larry Metz, decided that we weren't eligible. He took everyone out except the Florida first responders on April 19th, without even the knowledge of the Senate sponsor of the bill. Senate sponsor of the bill and I had actually been in conversation concerning the 9/11 victims, because we wanted them to be able to use doctors from the Mount Sinai program to verify their injuries. That program is intense. Those doctors are world class, and instead of having them have to set up with all doctors down here, I was conversing with the Senate sponsor of the bill, and he was in agreement and was trying to get a consensus. Meanwhile, the House side was changing the bill to throw us all out, and that's what they did. They threw us all out.
So let me be clear. Let me make sure I understand this. You have something that the taxpayers overwhelmingly voted in support of.
Yes.
You had something that at the legislative level had support. And then you have one person who can come along.
One person came along and did this, and what I find ironic is that when I started speaking to these legislators, many of them didn't know what they had voted on, which is not a surprise here. The end of the legislative session, they pushed through all of the bills because we only have a 2-month legislative session. And when they do that, sometimes they don't read the bills. So no one caught this. Everybody made the assumption that it was going to be the same as it was when the people voted on it on the ballot. The wording would be the same, because that wording was taken from a joint resolution that all of the members of the House and the Senate had voted on, and that wording was identical. All of a sudden, we have entirely different bill. Now, the young fellow you had on here before, Joe Johnson, is an amazing guy.
Yeah, he's all right.
He's the amazing Joe Johnson. I've never seen a guy with so much energy. He actually contacted every one of the 67 county property appraisers in the state to see if there was any validity to a claim that some had made of the cost. Turned out the cost was the cost would be 10 to 14 cents per citizen per year. Okay, and then he found out that the vast majority of the property appraisers were on our side, that they felt what this legislator did was unconstitutional, and that the bill should have passed in the form that it was written. So we had gone into the legislature, and we were working in the last session, and ironically, the Speaker of the House is Cochran, and Richard Cochran is now running for governor. Mr. Cochran delayed us while we were talking to him, trying to find a way to get a House sponsor for the bill. They limit House reps to 6 bills a session. And this is going to be all technical and boring, I'm afraid, but basically what they have done is they've limited the ability of a House of Representatives member to stand up for something that might be personal and important to them. They have 6 bills, that's it. So we were trying to get someone, we didn't have anyone. There were 3 other ways of doing it. We approached the Speaker of the House, Cochran, and they indicated to us that through his chief of staff, deputy chief of staff, that they were interested in what we were trying to do, as if they were trying to help us. And then at the very last couple of days of the session, they turned around and told us, you know, you're on your own.
I'm sorry, what state is this happening in?
This is happening in Florida.
Because
Yes.
I felt like I was back in Connecticut for a minute, the way that I'm hearing this play out. So what you're essentially saying to me is that based on this now failed legislation, a veteran can receive certain earned and due.
Veterans already had it.
Correct.
Veterans had this.
They had this,
yes.
but if you are an emergency responder, you do not qualify for it.
And he put so many roadblocks. This guy Metz, who was the House rep that did this, Larry Metz, he put so many roadblocks in the way that we even had a first responder, a female first responder EMS driver. Down here they have private emergency medical services serving some of the cities and counties. She had a traumatic brain injury from an accident while on duty, and she was being denied because they required a letter from her employer. And of course, the employer didn't want to write the letter because that would possibly, they were concerned that would possibly open them up to additional costs. You know, can't have any additional costs. And this girl was living on basically about $800 a month because all she got was Social Security disability.
What a slap in the face to
Yes.
the men and women who serve and protect.
Well, we managed, that was turned around. That was turned around by Craig Patrick, but it took time to get these things done.
So what's next?
Well, we're hoping in the next legislative session, Senator Simmons, who is a senior senator, and Senator Baxley, who was the sponsor of the bill, the original bill, have been working with us, and it looks like we are going to get their help again next session to try and get this in the legislature. The speaker is now gone, and assuming he doesn't become governor, which we are hoping that's not going to happen, we're working to make sure it doesn't happen. We would have the possibility of getting the bill through because the fellow that stopped it is no longer there. The real irony is that Larry Metz, the rep who did this, was rewarded by the governor by being appointed to the appellate court as a judge because he was term limited out.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable. You know, one of the things that has resonated with your story and with so many others is that there are a tremendous amount of men and women who I've had the opportunity and the blessing to meet throughout the course of this series who are retired, whether it be, you know, just based on they had an opportunity to retire or medically retire or whatever it may be, and still go on to lead a life of service. And I think that's incredibly inspirational. So I thank you for the work.
Well, but that's something that's sort of the nature of first responders. It's not everybody, but it's more of a calling for most of us. More of a calling than a job. I mean, I wasn't able to get the endurance up to hold a full-time job, but I was able to help when after 9/11 put together the strategic plan for the state of Florida, the 7 regional domestic task force units. I was part of the team that developed that protects the state of Florida and the people of the state of Florida in the event of any future mass casualty incident. Tabletop exercises to have joint exercises between county and city to make sure that everything meshes. Unfortunately, the fellow down in Parkland, that sheriff, who's now facing a vote of no confidence from his own deputies, that fellow wasn't doing the things that were recommended. So there was, when the incident came, there was no response.
It was a catastrophic failure.
Yes, it was. But like I said, we see, you know, as I travel around, I've seen others like myself who are still trying to be part of giving back to the community, doing something to protect our own communities. When 9/11 happened, I was really fortunate the governor appointed me to that commission. I needed something because of so many of my brothers and sisters who died on 9/11. You really wanted to be able to do something. And putting me on that, I spent 4 years, but it wasn't a 40-hour week. It was where I could work on it as I could. Absolutely. And we developed a great plan to protect the state of Florida. What we're hoping to do in the next session is with new leadership in the Senate, new leadership in the House, and a new governor, assuming that my personal pick would be DeSantis. If DeSantis becomes governor, we have a new Senate president and a new House speaker. We will have the opportunity to get this thing through. Senator Simmons and Senator Baxley have already committed to it, and it looks like we may have a couple of House sponsors. If we get the House sponsors, we should be able to get it through again. Because all we're trying to do is get it back to what the people voted on. And it's not, it's not any kind of remarkable cost. There were two property appraisers, Marty Kerr, who's a Democrat from South Florida, and David Johnson, who's a property appraiser and a Republican. One is a Democrat, one is a Republican. Both said the same thing. What the state legislature did is unconstitutional. They're uncomfortable with enforcing it, and that they would come forward and testify if necessary for us if we have to go to court over it. So there's a lot of people out there that recognize what this Speaker of the House did is wrong.
You know, one of the things that you had brought up resonated with me. We just finished filming with the creator of 58 Hours. And if I'm not mistaken, it was the incident that really inspired him to create the documentary. The shooting of those police officers happened on, it was 34 years to the day before the Parkland shooting.
Right, both on Valentine's Day.
It's unbelievable. But we have men and women who serve and protect our communities who are being slapped in the face with this. So hopefully it turns around.
We have 46 dead cops. We're not even 4 months into the year. I mean, no one seems to be recognizing that this false narrative that they got out there, that police are evil, is somehow resonating with the criminal element, which is now feeling more aggressive toward law enforcement, feeling that they can do whatever they want. I mean, you just had these two guys sitting having lunch, gunned down. I mean, both of them killed, and all they were doing was sitting in a restaurant having lunch.
It's terrifying. Well, brother, thank you for the work that you're doing.
Not at all.
Thank you for being on the
thank
show.
you for what you're doing, because if it wasn't for people like you who recognize that we're out there and try to publicize it, we'd have no chance.
If it wasn't for people like you who hit that damn share button on the video every single time you watch it, that really helps get this message out there. So guys, thank you for watching. Thank you for engaging. Thank you for sharing. God bless America.